The first book I talked about in this podcast was Jaya by Devdutt Patnaik. And as we all know, it's a fictional tale of Mahabharata. But since then, I have focused on non fiction as a genre for this podcast. But this month, I am going back to fiction with a book by Haruki Murakami, and it's titled Kafka on the Shore. After reading it, I regretted not picking this one all these years. Welcome to Books and Brew, and I'm your host Mayur Ghadge. And in this episode, I'll try to give a spoiler free overview of what to expect from the book and who would enjoy it. And in the last section of this episode, there will be some analysis on how I perceived this book, and there will be some spoilers. So if you got interested into reading the book and don't want any spoilers, you can skip the last section for now and come back later when you have read the book. But before I dive into the book, let me first express my emotions on the book in one sentence. What the heck did I read? Yes, those were my exact feelings when I read this one. Now that I have gotten that aside, let's dive in. First, I'll talk a little about the author, the structure of the book, its writing, and the plot. Of course, without any spoilers. So, this book is written by Haruki Murakami, as I said, and was published in 2002 in Japanese. And its English translation came in 2005. And this book is one of the most popular books written by Murakami. Within fiction, this book and typically all of Murakami's work is categorized as magical realism. So, this book is based out in real world Japan, but it has parallel timelines, something similar to, let's say, the movie Back to the Future. This book has cats talking to people, it has fish dropping from the sky like it's raining, it has some witty character names like Johnny Walker, the Scotch brand we all know, and Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy, and a whole lot of other weird stuff. But nothing seems out of place, and Murakami has written it so beautifully with so much attention to detail that you get lost in this world of magical realism created by him. It's one of the weirdest books I have read, but don't get me wrong, it's an amazing book. So, on the scale of weirdness, let's say at the very bottom of weirdness is adding water into your nice Johnny Walker scotch. Then comes the weirdness of adding a lot of Coke or any cola into your scotch. And then comes the disgusting weirdness of adding milk into your scotch. And after that comes Kafka on the Shore. No kidding. This book has taken weirdness to next level. So this book has two protagonists. One is a 15-year-old boy named Kafka, and the second is a 60-ish-year-old person named Nakata. And both of these stories are running in parallel and independent of each other actually, only to unfold in the very end of the book how they are related. So this dual narrative structure of the book makes it very engaging because you're constantly bouncing between the two stories, trying to connect them in your head and failing at it miserably until you actually read it in the book. The boy named Kafka is running away from his home and he hates his father because of this weird prophecy or curse his father has given that Kafka will kill him and will have sex with his mother and sister both. Something similar to the prophecy of the Greek king Oedipus. So he's trying to run away from this curse in the book, and his story revolves around what happens while he's running away. I did warn you, this book is weird. But hold on to the last section of the episode, and I'll try to explain how this prophecy is not as weird and disgusting as it sounds because of the magical realism and the world Murakami has created in the book. The second protagonist, Mr. Nakata, as I said, is in his 60s and can't read or write, but he has this weird talent of talking to cats. How? No effing idea. Why? I think you should read a book for that. Anyway, he uses this skill of talking to cats to find lost cats for rich families, and that's how he earns his living. And in this book, Nakata is kind of supportive role where his actions are in a way connected to Kafka without his knowledge, and it only unfolds in the later part of the book. I don't think talking to cats should put you off. Come on. Our entire generation has grown up reading and watching Harry Potter, where even hats talk, so cat is still a living being. And one of the greatest shows on Netflix, BoJack Horseman, has all the animals talking. So just cats talking should be perfectly fine. So Nakata's narrative is written entirely in third person, while Kafka's narrative is written in a first person perspective. So this contrasting writing structure is something I found very interesting from the literary point of view. So the book is not entirely sunny or cheerful. It has a feeling of melancholy, but has very witty writing and a lot of attention to detail to make the scene stand up in front of your eyes while reading. Another theme running in this book, which is the second highlight for this episode, is about Kafka having these long monologues. Or the characters in the book have dialogues which are very philosophical, and probably this is another reason why I like this book even more. There are a lot of metaphorical conversations and incidents so that every reader will have its own understanding of the story. And this isn't by accident or a result of poor writing. Haruki Murakami, in one of his interviews, himself said that this book is multi layered and doesn't mean to give answers to all the puzzles in the book. And each reader will have its own perspective to the book. So at the end of the book, you might still be left with some unanswered questions or have your own analysis of the story. Going back to the philosophical discussions in the book, it touches upon topics like purpose of life, concepts of memory, and what role they play, and so on. Just to give an example of the metaphorical conversations the characters in the book have, there is an instance when two characters are talking about what do memories mean, and one character responds by saying, and I quote, "Memories warm you up from the inside, but they also tear you apart." Stop quote. Another instance where this idea of memory comes back again, and in a very metaphorical way, and I quote, "Every one of us is losing something that's precious to us. Lost opportunities, lost possibilities, feelings we can never get back again. And this is what it means to be alive. But inside our heads, there is a little room where we store those memories. A room like a library. We have to dust things off every once in a while, let in fresh air, change the water in the flower vases. In other words, you live forever in your private library." Stop quote. So you see how Murakami has compared memories to a library full of books, which you have to cherish, clean, add new books to it, and water the old ones as well. At another instance, there is this monologue Kafka has in his mind about fate while he is trying to run away from the prophecy. And I quote, "Sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the sandstorm chases you. You turn again, but the storm adjusts. Over and over, you play this out, like some ominous dance of death, just before dawn. And this storm isn't something that blew in from far away, something that has nothing to do with you. This storm is you. It's something inside of you. So all you can do is give in to it. Step right inside the storm." Stop quote. And it later goes on to say, and I quote, "And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm is all about." Stop quote. So I read these couple excerpts to give an idea how multi-layered the book is. It's fiction that has deep philosophical underlying basis to it. It's not a book for everyone, I agree. But if you like fiction, go for it. If you like philosophy, it's a delight to read. If you like thriller or suspense, this book will meet your curiosity. If you like literature or well-written characters and stories, this book won't disappoint you. So irrespective of how you identify yourself, there will be something in this book that you'll enjoy reading a lot. To just give a meta reference on how the book will be different for different people, Even within the book, the same idea is shown and interpreted differently by different characters, be it the reference to philosophy, mythology, history, music, among many others. So, this book is rated at about 4.1 on Goodreads, and I wouldn't rate it any less. I highly recommend this book to everyone. Even if you don't like books with metaphorical meanings or unanswered questions at the end, still read this one. I am sure you'll have a weirdest book experience to tell. So, this ends my spoiler free discussion on the book and my pitch on why you should read this one. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my show on whichever platform you're listening to for more such episodes on books, coffee, and beer. So, moving to the last section of the episode, which will have some spoilers and analysis of what the metaphorical meaning of the book can be. So, in case you don't want any spoilers, this is the moment you should stop. Alright, so the title Kafka on the Shore is probably the idea that Kafka, the protagonist, is on the shore of consciousness and unconsciousness, or on the shore of the two parallel timelines, as he is the one character who has gone to the other side and interacted with characters in both timelines when he goes in the forest at the end of the book. Once you know this, the book Kafka on the Shore now has altogether different meaning, isn't it? Second, the entire discussion and probably a reason why many readers don't like the book is because of the depiction of incest, where Kafka sleeps with his mother without her consent and rapes his sister even when she tells him that it's not right. So on the primary level, it definitely is disturbing. I mean, you start hating the character Kafka because of his actions, and you stop rooting for him. But if you try to look into the magical world created by Murakami, where the soul is different than the body, you will probably see that Kafka is not the one who is sleeping with his mother, but it might be the soul of his father, or maybe the soul of Miss Seiki's old lover when she was 15. Also, it's probably not Nakata who killed Johnny Walker, but Kafka's soul in Nakata's body killed his father's soul in Johnny Walker, as the prophecy had said. This idea of souls transferring within the different bodies kind of makes sense to me, because at the end, Nakata's soul goes inside Hoshino's body as he starts talking to cats, which is a talent we all know Nakata possessed. Another idea in the book is that Nakata's searching for the other half of his shadow is like a metaphorical depiction of the idea how everyone is looking for their better half in life. And this comes out very evidently when early on in the book, Oshino says to Kafka, and I quote, "In ancient times, people weren't simple male or female, but one of the three types, male male, male female, or female female. In other words, each person was made out of the components of two people. Everyone was happy with this arrangement and never really gave it much thought. But then, God took a knife and cut everyone in half, right down in the middle. So after that, the world was divided just into male and female. The upshot being that people spend their entire time in life running to try and locate their missing half. And this philosophy coming from the mouth of Oshino, who is a transgender in the book, just adds so much depth to the writing, isn't it? As it's rightly said, non-fiction books bring a perspective to the things in real world around us. But fiction novels bring in the creativity and adds metaphorical ideas to the things we see around. I'm very excited to pick up the other books of Murakami, and until then, let me know how you like this episode. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you're listening to. Do comment on what you think about the theories and what is your perspective about them. My email ID is booksandbrewpodcast@gmail.com. Until then, spread the word, keep reading, happy listening.